All right, then let us begin. Welcome to this evening's session of the Board of Zoning Appeals for April the 9th, 2020. And would we have someone call the roll, please?
Yep, Jeff Cook.
Here.
Sherry Harlan Davis.
Here.
Joe Green.
Here.
Aaron Roberts.
Here.
Sayward Salazar.
With that, let us all say the Pledge of Allegiance, as is customary.
Pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which is one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now at this time, we will go to this meeting is in order.
Hello. Before I talk about the proof of publication, I would like to make a small announcement that this meeting is being held electronically pursuant to the order, the executive order of Governor Holcomb. And so with there being a quorum present, we do have a quorum to hold this meeting. And when we resume in a regular public meeting with all members present physically, we will have to make a motion to approve all the actions that we're taking at this meeting tonight. So with that being said, I have in front of me the notice of the proof of publication. This notice was published in advance. It states the time, date, and place of the hearings that are on tonight's agenda. Therefore, this notice is in order to hold a public hearing, and I would request the board make a motion to accept the proof of publication.
I'd make a motion to accept the publication for this evening's meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the proof of publication, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? We have approved that. As we do not have minutes that were sent to us, we will not be approving the minutes from the last meeting, but when we do resume for our following meetings, we will include the minutes from the previous with that. I would also like to make a motion for old business, which is BZA 13-2020. I would hear a motion to move that to the end of our meeting tonight, since two of our members have to recuse themselves. Would that be acceptable to the board?
And Joe, if I may, I said this briefly before the meeting, just a few minutes before we started, they tabled the meeting due to some alternate plans that they wanted to look at. So in fact, we would probably not need to make that motion at this point.
Oh, so are we tabling BZA 13-2020?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. With that in mind, I believe we will move on to BZA 4-2020. That would be the petition of Richmond Mall as the owner and Rob Johnson of Hull Property Group. And he's proposed a variance that would increase the surface of the lower sign cabinet on the pylon to allow for additional tenants to be listed at the address of 3801 East National Road West. If the petitioner could please give us a little bit about your petition.
Sure, this is Rob Johnson. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So this is Rob Johnson with Hull Property Group, and here today regarding the request that you just mentioned to increase the sign square footage allowed on the pylon. The enclosed, just to give you a little bit of background, the enclosed mall is a unique property, and unlike traditional shopping centers, in that the mall and its tenants rely heavily on exterior signs to advertise potential customers, as they do not have signs facing the right-of-way as a traditional strip center would. And so the mall tenants, if you will, the interior mall tenants are disadvantaged as related to traditional strip shopping centers. In addition, when the malls were constructed, the dynamic of the anchor tenants was different than it is today, in that the anchor tenants drove traffic to the mall. They drove traffic to their stores. They drove traffic to the small shop tenants. What we found over the past couple of years, very recently, and the shop tenants are acknowledging that by requiring exterior signs near the right-of-way, is that the small shops are actually driving more tenants than what was originally driven by the anchor tenants. And so the anchor tenants are no longer the driving force. And as you all will know, that anchor tenants were originally put on the pylon signs and the small shop tenants were left off. Small shop tenants are now realizing that and are requiring that they be put on road signage along the right-of-way and pylon signs, so that they have a static image in which to advertise that they are truly in the mall, as they don't have a sign on the exterior of the building. So that is a major reason that we're here today. We feel that it's important, just as important, the tenants we keep as the tenants we get that are new, because the new tenants will look at the existing tenants to establish sales and determine if they want to be in the area. And so obviously we want to keep the tenants that are existing the sales up and want to continue to keep them advertised at the street level to allow customers to know that they're there, that the mall is vibrant, and it does have tenants more than Dunham's and JCPenney and Office Max. And so it's important for these small shop tenants. To this end, the owners are willing to make the investment of putting in a first-class looking sign, expanding on what we've started and continued as we've progressed at the Richmond Mall, and add additional tenant panels in accordance with the package that you've received. And I'm going to, well, I was going to try to share my screen, but it appears that I've been disabled. But the idea is that the top Richmond Mall area and its architectural features would remain the same at 21.2 square feet. The existing top cabinet, which is shown with the Dillards, the JCPenney, the Dunhams, and the Office Max, was existing, and so we're just repurposing that square footage at 155 square feet. And then the bottom, what I would call 9 panels, is replacing an existing area of signage that was an old marquee where you put the letters up with a pole. There was 66 square feet of sign area there, and we've increased that to 229 to allow these additional tenants. Now, these additional tenants, if you'll notice, we've kept some the same between the front and the back, but we're also mixing that up to allow the maximum use of the sign by putting some tenants on one side and other tenants on the other side to allow as many of the tenants that we possibly can allow in the sign. So I think that was one piece we were missing at the last meeting, is really the segregation of the 2 parts of the sign remain the same. The bottom cabinet was existing at 66 square feet, and we're increasing that to 229 square feet total.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions to the petitioner from the board at this time? I do have a question. Mr. Johnson, in terms of the bottom panel, will you have to remove that bottom panel, and will that be backlit, or what would the sign look like? How would it differ from the current sign?
So the bottom panels, the bottom 9 panels, would look similar to the Dillards, the JCPenney, the Dunhams, and the Office Maxes. They've been reworked with the backlit. You're correct with the backlit. We'll still maintain the reveals and the architectural surround around the cabinet to keep in with the whole thing. Because again, we just don't want to slap a sign up. We want something that looks first class, and the owners are willing to invest the additional money to make sure that that occurs. We know that there is an issue, if you will, with the current backlighting, because it's showing the columns in the Dillards, JCPenney, Dunhams, and Office Max panels that were refurbished. And so when, hopefully with the approval of this variance, that's when the sign company will come back and fix that as well, so that we get a nice, clean line and distribution rather than, some dark shadows behind it.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions to the petitioner at this time from the board? Okay. I would thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
At this time, I think we will hear the reading from the public that were submitted previously. I'm not sure where I would find that. Matt, do you know that was sent to me and I'm seeing it on my sheet?
I don't believe we would have had any for this case. We haven't gotten any responses in the mail or anything like that. Oh. My apologies, I was muted. I don't believe we have any for this case because we hadn't gotten any responses in the mail, and we do have public hearings set up tonight on the phone if anybody calls in. So I would say that we can do public hearing that way, but have not received anything at this time in advance or as of right now.
Okay, then we will open public hearing. If someone would like to speak in favor of the current petition, if you could please just state your name and your address and let us know that you speak in favor of this. If we have anybody who would like to speak in opposition to the current petition, please state your name and your address and let us know if you'd like to speak in opposition to the petition. And hearing none, we will close public hearing. We will hear from the planning staff at this time.
And Matt, if the staff report is exactly the same, we can just incorporate it into the record. That way we don't have to read it all over again. And because this was simply a tabling because of the scrivener's error in the last
Legal advertisement.
legal advertisement.
Would that be something that the board members would be willing to do rather than read the staff report in its entirety again? I know both Sherry and Joe, you were not at the last meeting. So if you think it'd be beneficial to hear that staff report again, I don't mind doing that, but it doesn't have to be the case.
No, that's perfectly fine. If that's another procedure we can do and that's already available, then that's perfectly fine. And then we can just move to questions to the planning staff at this point.
Do we need a motion for that?
You can make a motion to incorporate the last planning staff report read into the minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the staff report reading from the prior meeting last month into the minutes of this meeting.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we need to call the particular one or just voice vote?
Just a voice vote on that one.
Okay, and so in all in favor of incorporating meeting minutes from last time, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, and with that, we will ask if there are any questions to the planning staff from the board at this time. I think I have one. Hearing none, I would hear a motion for BZA 4-2020.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion for approval for BZA 4-2020.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Will you please call the roll?
Jeff Cook,
Aye.
Sherry Harlan Davis,
Aye.
Joe Green,
Aye.
and Aaron Roberts.
Aye.
And with that, the motion passes. 4-2020 is now approved. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and good luck. We'll now move on to BZA 5-2020. And that would be the petition of, is it DAK Americas LLC is the owner, O'Brien and Gear Engineers. Ramon is the agent at the address of 1561 Northwest 11th Street. And they're looking for approval of variance development standards to reduce a side yard setback to less than 100% of the facade height and to increase the maximum height standard from 40 feet to 100 feet. If the petitioner could please give their name and tell us a little bit about their petition, please.
Jeremy here.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Forgot to unmute. It helps. Jeremy Troutline, site manager at 1561 Northwest 11th Street, DAC Americas. And we have a PowerPoint that I will attempt to share.
Okay.
And I am disabled from sharing, so if Matt could share, that would be great.
Yep, absolutely. Sorry for the confusion. I will get that started right now.
Okay. So DAC Americas was acquired by, Perpetual was acquired by DAC Americas in February 1, 2019. Our current operations, and this will be a review for the members who was not present at the last meeting. So we'll give a real quick overview, and then we'll move into some of the issues that we had with the neighboring facilities. So our current operations recycles PET bottles into rPET flake. Our annual capacity of 1 million pounds, 100 million pounds of rPET flakes per year. And we currently employ 62 full service employees. We are currently limited on our product end uses. So our proposal for the expansion and upgrade in operations will be an investment of $32 million over 5 years. This will allow us to recycle PET bottles into rPET or recycled PET pellet. This will add, or if you can go back to the other slide.
Yep.
Matt, can you go back to the other slide, please? There you go. This will add 30 new full-time employees at an average wage of $20.89 per hour. This will add over $1 million in additional payroll per year. And it will create a circular environment or a circular economy, bottle-to-bottle production for our recycling. And this will also expand our current flake into pellet and expand our end use. So if you can go on to the next slide, and then the next slides, I will turn it over to Dirk, and he will give a better technical understanding of the actual variance that we're asking for.
Yes, good evening, members of the board. What you see on this slide is you see the DAC Richmond property, which is located in the Northwest Industrial Park. It's highlighted in red. And just to the right, you will see a close-up view of the property, and it shows a second area that's being highlighted. That's where the proposed facility is going to be constructed at the facility, which is basically in our northeast corner. Next slide, please. This right here is a more detailed overview of the project. On the left-hand side, you will see a aerial view or a plan view of the proposed plant. It has storage silos on the south side. It has the manufacturing facilities in the center. It has some office and admin facilities to the north west, and then on the north side, it's got 2 additional storage silos and then a truck loading station. What you see down below is you see a more close-up view of the location or the proposed building that's going to be put in that area of the plant. Next slide, please. So here are the specifics of the variance request. There are the height of 4 structures and the setback of 2 structures. If we look at this drawing or this side view of the proposed project, on the left-hand side you will see a flake silo, which is a storage silo that the plant currently puts in bulk bags and ships from the site. It will be stored now in a silo prior to going to the new production facility. The second thing is a building which is 60-foot elevation, which will actually contain the production equipment. The next item is the pellet storage silo, which is basically converting flakes into pellets, and the pellets will be stored there prior to it going into the loading building. Matt, could you please hit enter? So what this shows, it shows the production building and it shows the proposed equipment superimposed in that new production facility. Matt, could you enter again, please? And what this is this is also a side view of what's the proposed truck loading station is for to actually load out the material into a truck. So those are the the variance requests that we have. It's a height variance and a setback variance, and we set directly across from neighboring Smith Foods, which has silos that are similar in height to what we're proposing. All right, Jeremy, I think this is back to you.
I will move in to discuss some of the concerns that was raised in our meeting, in March 12th meeting. And some of those concerns was plastic debris impacting surrounding properties, insect activity such as gnats, mosquitoes, and flies, rodent and varmint activity, and foul smell. So we'll cover some of those concerns in the next slides if you'll push enter. So when we look at the first concern, which is plastic debris impacting surrounding properties, some of our action and proposed solutions from the March meeting would be to install a fence, and we will be coming forth to the same committee for a variance on a fence construction. That fence will be placed on the southeast side of the property. This will prevent airborne plastics and label debris from blowing off-site. It'll also prevent debris from migrating into the stormwater and runoff areas. And the fence will be on the inside of the easement. We will also install landscaping in the easement and of the southwest side of the property. We will also be installing perimeter fencing on the completion of the rest of the project. So once the project is completed, we'll install fencing around the rest of the site. We have also installed netting on the outside process equipment to catch airborne materials. We have compactor areas which have outside conveyors. We have in the first week of April, the last week of March, first week of April, we have put nets on those conveyors, and we'll see pictures of that in the coming slides. We also have input conveyors on the outside of the plant, and we have put nets in those areas. That's also been completed in the first week of April. Since the concrete has been installed, we've implemented a new Bobcat sweeper, and that was acquired and implemented on 3/14. And this will increase it will also increase the enforcement of exit waste hauling tarping. And we're working with our waste haulers on better tarping and better upkeep of the equipment before it leaves site. And we're doing that by creating a compactor truck washing station to reduce the loose debris on those units. It states that it's in progress. That was actually completed as of this morning. So that's in place. So if you'll move on. This is a outline of our perimeter where we're going to be placing the fencing once we get a variance to do so. And so around the perimeter is in red is where the fencing will be located. In the green section on the bottom of the slide, we'll be planting evergreens to also help shield from any airborne materials that may get past the fence. And we're hoping that variance can be for a 10-foot, therefore reducing the debris that may be blown. We will also be looking at fencing behind the bell yard and on the north side of the plant. Next slide. The newly installed netting to reduce airborne debris. You see pictures of that here. So in the purple, that is our compactor area, and we have now put the netting in place as pictured. And on the upper right-hand corner, that is our input conveyor. And you also see the netting that's been put in place on that conveyor, reducing the airborne materials. We have also, on the lower right-hand corner, placed netting at ground level to help any turbulence that may be created at ground level, creating airborne materials. Next slide. If we'll talk about the insect, gnats, mosquitoes, and flies, and the actions and proposals, we're focused on primary source of the insects on the south side of the building surrounding the runoff. We will eliminate the factors that lead to creation of stagnant holding areas. Previously referenced debris reduction as far as the netting, the housekeeping, and the ability to now clean concrete areas versus mud areas. Prevent debris from migrating into the storm runoff water areas referenced by the fencing, and the installation of the nets. We're committed to controlling the insects. So we're going to double the number of warm month sprayings by a third party. We're going to increase the spray zones for the perimeter of the building, the property lines, and the runoff areas. We will also increase the post-project additions to spray around the new building and the fence lines. If we look at the local and state approved stormwater pollution plan, so we do have and the approval from the governed stormwater runoff quality management and commitment during construction. So all the new expanded concrete services have been approved. We're maintaining the best management practices employed for construction activities. And the expansion of the detention pond has also been approved. So it also states here that the IDEM permits, as far as govern stormwater and quality, DAC Americas has never or has not been outside of the compliance with permits required. Where stormwater it's actually gotten better since DAC Americas has acquired the facility in 2019. We've been responsive to any complaints and verifying with the city that we meet all those requirements. The expansion will lead to further improvements with the runoff quality, less exposure to raw material, less exposed soil, and improved detention design. This slide shows the new concrete areas that has been put in place and will further allow for the ease of cleaning, the reduction of debris and stagnant water. Go on to the next slide. So this slide basically just shows our facility before any construction compared to now. So in 2016 to 2017 timeframe, there was a lot of dirt on site. And as you can see in the upper left-hand corner, the 3 red circles was piles and mountains of loose debris and bottles. They were in muddy areas, they were hard to upkeep, and this also promoted breeding of insects and rodents. And you can see a pile that represents that in the upper right-hand corner. If you look at the bottom picture, that is our site now. This was just taken a few weeks ago. As you can see, we're committed to cleaning the area, improving our site, and the concrete and the development is going to allow us to do just that. This is a close-up picture of the site in 2016. There was a lot of blowing debris. So we feel and we understand the concerns of our neighbors. However, we would like to show them the improvements that we've made and allow them to see the progress that we've made. So if you look at the before and the after pictures, I think there's a great difference in the ownership of this building and of this project. Going along with that, the stormwater or the runoff, it was full of heavy vegetation, made it hard to clean, and it held stagnant water. So we have removed a lot of the vegetation and improved that stormwater. And in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see where the plans that have already been approved. And this is what will be implemented in the stormwater and the runoff area. And this will further improve with, detention ponds, the runoff condition, and this will allow us to keep the facility and the stagnant water off-site. As far as rodents, we are committed to increase our pet control, increase the number of rodent control stations on site, adjust device to access and optimize the control of the bases to the layout of the building and the bottle yard, increase controls internally and externally to reduce the opportunity for pest populations. And we will also increase the monitoring of those. By reducing the loose bottles and the debris on site, this will prevent and reduce the propensity for varmints, mosquitoes, and gnats and flies. So for the foul smell that has been also reported, we're also taking action on that by a lot of the actions that we've seen before, which is keeping the debris off the ground, not allowing it to accumulate and hold water and become stagnant. We are also looking at some odor neutralizing agents for our pits and trenches. We're evaluating a tried and proven industrial solution. Further research and completion is targeted for Q3 of 2020. And we are actually in the process and should have on site this week 2 of those units to trial for this summer throughout the summer months to see if that's the permanent solution that we want to put in place. So I will turn it over to Ricky Lang and let him talk through the benefits of bringing DAC Americas and this expansion to Richmond.
Again, my name is Ricky Lane. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, in the previous variance meeting, there were several comments made with regard to the commitment of DAC Americas Richmond to not being a native Richmondite, and the commitment of our business to the area was challenged. And so I would like to highlight that in 2019, we made significant impact with regards to the fact that we paid over $3 million in salaries to our Richmond employees. To further show our impact for the community, we also had over 125 unique visitors come to the greater Richmond area in support of our facility. And on those visits, we spent more than $250,000. Of the $32 million project that Jeremy and Dirk have already discussed, we've already executed $2 million of that project. In addition to that, we have $375,000 in capital expenditures at the site. And most importantly, we have more than $2.5 million spent in pure Richmond and Wayne County vendors providing goods and services to our facility. So again, we are very committed to the location. We feel a part of this location, and our employees find their living at this location. So we certainly are a part of Richmond, and we will continue to be a part of Richmond. And we would do that also through our educational and endeavors and incentives with regard to recycling. We support the Boy Scouts of America. We're very active in the public schools, especially around Earth Day and Earth Week with regard to recycling. And we also support the Wayne County Special Olympics. Next slide. When you look at the $2.5 million that we spent in the Richmond area, we are supporting over 92 local companies and vendors in their efforts to stay as operating businesses. And this is just a few of the 92 local vendors that we are supporting and that we spent over $2.5 million or nearly $2.5 million with in 2019. Next slide. So as we look at, again, the challenge of what our commitment was to the local area coming out of the previous variance meeting, we are committed to making this a world-class recycling facility. I believe that many of the images that Jeremy went over can show the change of what this facility was and how it was run prior to our ownership that took over in February of 2019. But we remain committed to Richmond and to Wayne County to operate safe, compliant operations and to continue to bring value to the community. We'll be a great environmental steward and neighbor, and we will bring and support and serve the community through our dedicated employees. And we, at the end of this project, we'll have a state-of-the-art PET recycling facility that the whole community will be able to showcase and be proud of. And when we finish that facility, we will be able to establish circular economies, which very few places in the U.S. will be able to boast, where consumers can buy consumer goods and bottles and food packaging, and they can consume and use those packages. They can be recycled in the Richmond area and be returned right back into the same products in the greater Richmond area, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. And most of all, that we are truly committed to making change and delivering upon that change. So with that, we would like to close and thank you for this consideration, and we'll be glad to answer any further questions you have.
Thank you so much. Now at this time, I would hear any questions that the board may have for the petitioner. Are there any questions from the board to the petitioners at this time? And hearing none, I will have open public hearing. If there is anyone who would like to speak in favor of the current petition, if you could please state your name and your address and let us know why you approve of this particular petition?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, my name is Valerie Schaefer, and I am the president of the Economic Development Corporation of Wayne County. And I have had the pleasure of working with Ricky and Jeremy and the entire DAC Americas team since they acquired Perpetual Recycling Solutions in early 2019. And I understand a lot of the issues that the neighboring property owners had with the former owners. I worked with the prior two owners over the years, and I'm sure Ricky can attest to the fact that as soon as DAC acquired this facility, I was very open and honest about those issues. Mayor Snow participated in a conversation with us as well to express those concerns, and very early on, DAC was very proactive in ensuring us that they would be addressing those issues through this new investment project that they presented here today. And so I'm very confident that they will move forward with all of the plans that they have presented today that will not only address the concerns of pollution and litter and rodents and insects, all issues that have been presented in the past, but with these positive changes to their environments comes a significant investment in Richmond to the tune of $32 million that will be creating 30 new jobs here. So these two investment projects go hand in hand, and I just think that, I just hope that you will support the petition here today so they can move forward with these investments and much needed improvements to this property and continue to be strong partners in the Richmond area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other any other people that would like to speak in favor of the current petition? If you could please state your name and your address and let us know why you would like to speak in favor of BZA 5-2020.
Yeah, my name is Justin Farrell. I own the property at 2190 Williamsburg Pike and the vacant land just to the east of DAC Americas. Also do a lot of business with DAC. We do all their waste hauling. I've done business with DAC since they acquired it, did business with Perpetual, and I know all the neighbors' concerns. I had them myself. It's been a struggle over the years. I've worked with all the owners there, but I can tell you that DAC has come in. They're willing to make the investment, do what it takes. They want to be good neighbors. They're committed to Richmond. They've already spent millions of dollars on their facility. They made my job easier. I think anybody that has an adjoining property there could see that they're definitely committed to stepping up and taking care of the problems that they've had in the past. So I really hope you guys will consider that and let them move forward with their progress. That's all I've got.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the current petition? If you could please state your name and your address and let us know.
My name is Ed Thompson. I'm with A+ Signs. I'm one of the adjoining neighbors. I just wanted to voice very happy to see the commitments they've set forth and the improvements they plan on doing to try to help with the problems we've had in the neighborhood. I look forward to a better future with DAC. Really, I hope they can provide the better environment for our business, for our employees, for the neighborhood. I look forward to seeing the progress and the changes made.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the current petition? If you could please state your name. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the current petition? If you could please state your name and let us know why you're in opposition. Hearing none, we will now close public hearing and we will go to the planning staff.
we can do the same motion, but I would maybe perhaps like to have Elijah's letter read into the record.
Okay, yeah, and Kim had said if you didn't hear that, that she might recommend if you're willing to do the same motion that we did for the last one, because the staff report has been read. But I did receive a memo from our head engineer at sanitation, Elijah Welch, that I'd be willing to read about some of the stormwater issues. It should be in all your packets, but if you'd like me to read that or any bits of the findings of fact of the staff report, I'd be more than happy to assist with that.
And will the memo be available to the public?
It's been posted on Laserfish, which is our public-facing document storage site, so that is publicly available at this time, yes.
Okay, then I don't, unless the board, it's the board's pleasure, but I personally don't see a reason why you would need to read that if it has been made available and the issues have been addressed by professionals. I would
like to make a motion, Mr. Chair, to go ahead and accept the reading of the staff report from last month, along with the letter that's been posted by the city engineer, postpone reading or not reading that, but making it available. And I know I've read that already, which is in my packet, if that motion is acceptable.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of keeping the Planning Commission's reading of report from the last meeting, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right. And with that, I will ask if there are any questions to the planning staff from the board at this time. And hearing none, I would accept a motion for BZA 5-2020.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to approve BZA 5-2020 based on the finding of facts and the written commitment that they're going to come back for the fence around the storage area.
Second.
Actually, so I apologize, Matt, and I wanted to ask a question. I meant to ask this about the fence. Can we make that a written commitment if they have to have that approved by BZA at a later date?
I believe so. We had reviewed that. So it says to return to the BZA for a variance to install a fence around the outdoor storage areas, where the language about needing to return for a variance implies that the fence would be tall enough to require an actual variance. And they had mentioned that 10 feet, which would definitely be tall enough that they would require a variance for it. If that answers your question, but it might not have.
Well, I'm wondering if we should make that a written commitment that they would have to do this, knowing that they would have to come. You see where it's kind of
I think I see what you're saying, yes.
A little sticky.
And they have, in speaking with Ricky and the other team from DAC, had expressed and said that in their presentation that they absolutely do intend on returning to the board for that variance.
Okay.
So.
Sounds good. All right. I apologize. I didn't want to hold everything up. So I heard a motion with the findings of fact and the written commitments.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Will you please call the roll?
Jeff Cook?
Aye.
Sherry Harlan Davis?
Aye.
Joe Green?
Aye.
And Aaron Roberts?
Aye.
And with that, we pass BZA 5-2020. Good luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we move on to BZA 7-2020. Pull it up here. There we are. And this would be the petition of Abilities Richmond Incorporated as the owner and Porter Advertising as the agent. And this would be approval for a variance of development standards to allow a conversion for longevity on an existing billboard and allow a pole sign in the commercial, the CB, and the location of the property is at 831 Northeast Street. If the petitioner could please state your name and tell us a little bit about your petition.
Good evening. My name is Richard Peterson. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Good. Yes, we can.
Thank you for allowing me to present to the board. We have had this billboard on this location since 1960. We actually purchased this building in 1978. Currently, the billboard is on the roof of this building. We have made significant repairs to the building over the years, including some roof repairs in 91, some brick repairs in 94. We put a new roof on the building in 04. In 05, we ended up donating the building to another not-for-profit to get it back into usable shape. The only purpose that we had the billboard was because the billboard was on the roof. So we donated the building to another organization with hopes that they would start fixing up the building and get it back out into usable shape. Unfortunately, the church that we gave it to folded. In the meantime, they had used the back end of the garage. The church folded. They ended up donating illegally the building to another organization. So it took a couple of years to unwind that, but we were able to do that successfully. Some of the other repairs, we did some more roof repairs in 02. And then in 2018, we found another organization that we donated the building to, and that's currently who owns the building now, and it's Abilities Inc. They're going to invest anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000 in getting this building back into usable shape, and then occupy the first floor with their not-for-profit. Since the report from the city, I assume all you board members have gone over that and have read it. I'm not going to address all those issues. I'm only going to address the issue of which the city had some concerns with, and that had to do with Section C and the fact of practical difficulties. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background on what we have tried to do. So we have been aware for years that when Abilities started to do repairs on the building, that the billboard on the roof was a little bit of a concern. In the meantime, there were some roof issues, and the city cited the owner for conditions that made that building unsafe. So at that time, we started to investigate all these possibilities in a great detail. One of the issues that we considered doing was putting a beam on the roof and spanning a beam from the east wall to the west wall, and then building everything up off of that. In order to do that, the west wall of the building is considered a common wall with the neighbor. So we approached the previous owner, and this was done about 2.5 years ago. We approached the previous owner through their attorney, and they didn't want to have anything to do with it. I found out 1.5 years ago that the ownership of that building had changed. I approached the new owner with the same idea, and they, again, did not want to have any discussions of using the common wall. They did not want us to touch that wall in any way. We next looked at spanning building, putting some beams on the roof from the south end of the building to the north end of the building, and again, supporting all the loads on the wall themselves. But that span was about 85 feet and quite large, which would require the beam to be rather significant. So we looked at other options. One of the options that we explored was to build a monopole from the basement of the building up through the first floor, up through the second floor, and then up through the roof. In order to do that, we would have had to do all that before Abilities started any of their repair work because of the column itself and getting access to the basement. So they have now been issued permits to proceed with repairs of the building, and if this virus had not hit, they would have been doing those repairs already. But because of that, they have been delayed a little bit. So the next option that we looked at was actually putting a monopole on the very south end of the building. But it's a very unique situation in the fact that the building goes all the way to the property line, excuse me, the south end of the building is actually on the property line. So there's no distance between the south property line and the sidewalk. So in order to do that, we would have to go through the Public Works Department, and did not think that that would get approved, and probably was not a good idea. The next option that we looked at was then putting a monopole in the garage itself. The garage is a one-story facility, where the building itself is a two-story facility. So that appeared to everybody to be the best solution, and that's the variance that we're requesting be granted tonight. I do have this short PowerPoint presentation. Can you all see that?
We cannot.
Okay. Matt, is it possible for you to share the screen?
I can share my screen. I don't believe I have a copy of that PowerPoint. Oh. Sorry about that again. I don't have a copy of that PowerPoint, but if you were able to email it to me real quick and present on anything for a few more, like a minute or two, I'll be able to download it and get it right up for you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to skip that for now because that'll take my concentration away and it'll take me a minute or two. So the issue I believe that the city has is they want us to re-erect the building, or excuse me, the billboard where it currently is on the roof of the building. Having looked at all those options, having discussions with the owner of the property, we did not feel that that was a practical solution. So we are petitioning to move the billboard to the south end of the property and put a foundation in the garage itself, have the billboard go up through the roof and then up over the second floor of the building. If I could get the PowerPoint to work, I would be able to show you exactly what it looks like now, driving in both directions, as well as what it would look like once the new billboard was erected. I will also ask my son, Lucas Peterson, if he has anything that he wants to add. Okay, hearing none.
I am the operations manager over for advertising. And the only thing I would add is that there were a few things mentioned in the staff report about some of the impacts to the depot district, in that, you know, that billboard being there, we use it along with a lot of our clients to advertise and promote a lot of the events that happen down there in the depot district, most recently including the Meltdown and Christmas in the Depot. And so, you know, it is a very beneficial thing to have that billboard there, not just for us, but for the community, and be able to support a lot of the events that are held in the area. I'll also add that, you know, as Richard mentioned, there were, you know, we did weigh a number of options in order to, you know, try and facilitate this process as best as possible, both for the city, for us, and for Abilities Richmond. And, you know, we came to this as the best scenario for all parties involved. I believe, Matt, I did send you that presentation. If you could go ahead and get that started, and then we can.
Yeah, and absolutely. And Richard, I wanted to try something if you have it pulled up still. If I change your permissions to make you a co-host real quick, if you want to try resharing it now, If you can see if that works, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'll be happy to get it downloaded.
Can you see it now?
No, do you have if you hover on your screen, do you have a green button in the middle that says share screen? You might be able to
Yes.
If you press that, it should pop up the different windows you have open on your computer, and you might be able to open it from there if you click on the PowerPoint.
How about now?
Yes, there's something.
All right.
There we go.
Thanks, Aaron. That's perfect.
All right. This slide is what the billboard currently looks like if you're driving southbound on Chester Boulevard. As you can see, the billboard is on the roof of the building. This is currently what it looks like driving northbound on Chester Boulevard. We have whited out the ad. I've kind of already talked about why we're doing this to better utilize space. Some of the additional things that that would make the project better is that it would get the stresses off of the walls themselves. It would allow the property owner who has already designed the space inside the building with their architect on where they want the walls. And so they don't have to go back through that redesign process to account for that monopole going from the basement through each of the floors up through the roof. And it would provide a safe working condition for us and our employees. And it would make the billboard visually more appealing than it would be now if we were to go back in and re-erect it on the roof. The benefits for the city that we envision are the increased visual appeal of the area, the reduction in visual obstructions, a step toward a resolution of the property's unsafe building notice, and continue revitalization of the Depot District area by allowing the property owner to proceed more quickly. This is an example of a billboard. Granted, this is a low height above the ground billboard, but this is kind of what it would look like if you could imagine that the grass line was the top of that garage roof. So we have superimposed it here on a photo to give you some idea of what it would look like. It would be about the same height as it currently is now, but you would see that portion coming through the roof to the bottom of the billboard. And then this last slide just shows a lot of the organizations that we help promote themselves throughout the city and help get their message across. So that is all that I have at this time.
And Richard, at the top of your screen, you should have a red button maybe that says stop sharing or something along those lines, if you could press that.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
At this time, are there any questions from the board to the petitioner?
I have a question. The D Street intersection and Chester Boulevard is very hard to see around that building and traffic coming anyway. How is this billboard being located farther south going to impact that line of sight? I know I've seen in the PowerPoint, but I've also tried to turn northbound out of D Street there, and it's a struggle sometimes just to see cars and trucks coming over top of the hill.
So there is a building, so Northeast Street is north of the building, and then on the back side of the building is Elm Street. Elm Street goes underneath Chester Boulevard under the bridge. The next street that you're talking about is D Street, and there's a couple of buildings that are in there. I know there's at least one building, maybe two buildings that I think might not even be inhabited now that are south of Elm Street, north of D Street. I don't know what the plans are for those two buildings. There were tenants in it about a year ago. I don't know if there's tenants in those buildings at the current time. But but the actual billboard would be high enough that if you were turning northbound off of D Street, that the billboard would not obstruct the visibility of traffic heading southbound.
Are there any other questions to the petitioner from the board? I do have one, Mr. Peterson. Could you explain to me again, in terms of the pole? What was the problem with the pole being in the thing? Is it that it would have to go directly through the entire structure, or what was the issue with replacing the billboard as it currently is?
Currently, the billboard is supported by some beams that are underneath the roof. And part of that roof has collapsed, which is why it's in the unsafe building situation. So the safest way to do it is get those stresses off of the roof itself. So when you look at getting the stresses off the roof, you're either going to put those on the exterior walls, or you're going to carry all that dead weight through a monopole all the way down to the basement with the foundation. The other factor in the design of that billboard is all the wind pressures on the billboard itself. That creates quite a momentum force that really makes the column of the billboard larger than the dead weight of the billboard. So in order to get down to a foundation, you would have to go all the way down to the basement, down to solid, bedrock, as opposed to building it on one of the floors, or the first floor or the second floor.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from the board to the petitioner? Thank you very much, Mr. Peterson. At this time, we will open public hearing. Those that would like to speak in favor of the current petition, if you could please state your name and let us know why you'd be in favor of it.
My name is Bob Johnson. I am in favor of it. I am actually going to be the general contractor on that job, and we've looked at this from several different angles. Like Richard had said, this building is, maybe 1880, I think it is. And from a standpoint of the engineers and the architects, they recommended also that we should, look at other alternatives to get this sign away from this roof. And Richard, said put this mast in the building, and obviously putting it through the garage. It's a space that won't be used for office space like they're planning, and you'll have to redesign the whole building. Also, you'd have a 24-inch column going all the way through your building, and you have roof penetration problems also with movement. Whereas if it's in the garage, it's not a big issue as far as space or future roof issues. If there was a roof issue, if it did leak or have some problem, it would be in the garage and not in an office setting or any of the facilities that they're building there. So I think as a general contractor, this is our best solution to a problem for a building that we're trying to renovate and make it look a lot nicer for the depot district down there. Mr. Cook had a question about the signage also blocking a view from D Street. Like Richard said, there's actually another street right there. I think it's called Elm. Its actual street would be more like an alley. It's split between the two blocks there. So you almost have another city block before you get to D Street to make that turn. So we looked at this, and we don't think that there's going to be any traffic issues or anything like that.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the current petition? If you could please state your name. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the current petition? If you could please state your name and let us know why you're speaking in opposition of the petition. Hearing none, we will close public hearing and we will hear from the planning staff at this point.
All right, thank you. This is petition BZA 7-2020. The petition of Abilities Richmond Incorporated is the owner and Porter Advertising is the agent, requesting a approval of a variance of development standards to allow a conversion for longevity on an existing billboard and to allow a pole sign in the CB or Central Business Zoning District located at 831 North E Street. Zoning, like I said, is Central Business or CB, and the building is currently vacant but is starting to be renovated. Joining zoning to the north, to the south, to the east, and to the west is all CB. We notified 8 adjacent property owners and received 1 response from Better Homes and Gardens First Realty Group at 900 North E Street, Suite 200 in Richmond, stated that they were in favor of the petition. The proposed variance would allow the owner to relocate an existing billboard from the roof of the building to a pole through the roof of the garage on the southern side of the property. The structure at 831 North E Street has fallen into disrepair, and in order to repair the building has been issued by the Richmond Unsafe Building Commission. Variances of development standards can be approved if practical difficulties exist for the property. A practical difficulty is defined as a difficulty with regard to one's ability to improve land stemming from the regulations of this Unified Development Ordinance. A practical difficulty is not a hardship, rather it is a situation where the owner could comply with the regulations within this Unified Development Ordinance, but would like a variance from the development standards to improve his site in a practical manner. For instance, a person may request a variance from a side yard setback due to a large tree which is blocking the only location that would meet the development standards for a new garage location. The planning staff consulted with all city departments and utilities to determine any objections based on public health and safety, and no objections were raised. Staff recommendation is for denial based on these findings of fact. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because relocating the billboard to a new location on a more stable foundation / structure will be safer for the structural integrity of the building rather than being anchored directly to the roof of the building, which is not structurally sound currently. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the billboard is already located on site and the reconfiguration of the location and method of placement of the billboard will not immediately impact adjacent properties any more than the current setup has. Notwithstanding this, staff has taken into consideration that the structure is considered a legal non-conforming structure and the goals of altering the structure in such a way as to result in a prolonging of the legal nonconformity is not permitted by the UDO and could affect the use and value of the depot area that is targeted for attracting businesses that will enhance the aesthetics value of the area. Staff has also taken into consideration the future effects upon use and value of the area to the extent permitting the prolonging of a legal nonconformity could be interpreted to be setting of an undesirable precedent contrary to the administration's policies. The strict application of the terms of the ordinance will not result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because there is not sufficient practical difficulty cited in the petition as the billboard could be simply replaced in the current location after repairs are completed on the building without a variance being required. And there were no written commitments.
Thank you very much. I would hear if the board had any questions for the planning staff.
I have a couple of questions, Mr. Chair.
You could.
Matt, can you go back? I think it was in section B of the findings of facts where you had articulated a legal non-conforming the way the sign is placed on the roof today. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And the legal nonconformity would be in the definition of a billboard. I believe that the UDO classifies them that way based on the sign area more than anything else, where a billboard is substantially larger in terms of square footage than any signs that we do permit. So it would be legal nonconforming in the way that we don't explicitly allow billboards in the current zoning code anymore, and the overall area of the billboard is significantly larger than we would allow for any other signs, if that answers that.
It does, and I think, if I remember correctly, in the UDO, there is a prohibition about signs on the rooftop of a building altogether. So, that being said, if the legal nonconformity is located to another place, does that take the grandfather away from that? And then the new, not the new, but the current ordinance of not having a sign on a roof.
I interpret it.
I guess it's not on the roof, but it's through the roof, which has the same issues as a sign on the roof, because it's going to move all the time.
Right. I would interpret it as relocating the sign in and of itself would be not requiring a variance, because it loses its legal nonconforming status if the nonconformity is increased. So if they were to expand the area of the billboard or something similar that made it less conforming with the Unified Development Ordinance, it would require that. But since they're requesting similar dimensions and height and everything like that, but relocating it with the pole and converting it to the more longer, sustainable structural component, that's what requires the variance being needed.
Matt, that kind of brings me to my question in terms of the viability of a billboard on a roof, since we don't allow that in the UDO currently. Would the proposal in terms of letter C for the findings of fact, would that violate that in terms of just repairing the roof? I'm assuming we didn't allow that in UDOs specifically because of the safety issues and so basically like the torque that would be on a roof, on the sign, and it being anchored to the roof. I've not specifically seen any violation in the UDO of signs being located on roofs. I very well might be incorrect in that, but in my time here, I've not noticed any restriction on that, to my knowledge. Okay, that's why I was concerned with the idea of just repairing the roof and putting it back if we were going to see similar issues regarding Are there any other questions to the planning staff from the board at this time? Are there any conversations that the board would like to have amongst ourselves? Hearing none, I would hear a motion for BZA 7-2020.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve BZA 7-2020.
I have a motion. Do I hear? I have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Will they please roll? Okay, will you please call the roll?
Jeff Cook?
No.
Sherry Harlan Davis?
No.
Joe Green?
No.
And Aaron Roberts?
No.
Okay.
Okay, because that was a no vote, that means that petition fails. And in this case, because the petitioner would have 30 days in order to appeal this case to the board or to the Wayne County Circuit or Superior Court, that is 30 days in accordance with Indiana Code 36-7-4. So I just want to repeat that, make sure that you heard it. It's 30 days to appeal this no vote to the Wayne County Superior or Circuit Court, and the code for that is Indiana Code 36-7-4.
Thank you very much. move to BZA 10-2020, and that would be the petition of West End Savings Bank as the owner, Ed Thompson of A+ Signs as the agent, asking for the approval of a variance of development standards to allow an increase of maximum ground height, or ground sign height above the grade of 8 feet to 9 feet, and at the location of 101 South 37th Street. If the petitioner could please state your name and tell us a little bit about your petition.
Yeah, my name's Ed Thompson. I'm the owner of A+ Signs, 920 Progress Drive. As I believe most of us know, West End Bank is converting to Three Rivers Credit Union. Three Rivers, in their rebrand process, they use a typical style of sign, all their branches, all their facilities. This sign, the way it is designed, the minimum height we can have at this structure with what UDO requires, plantings and things like that below the sign, we're asking to increase the height allowed for this monument sign from 8 feet to 9 feet above grade level. This is considered a monument sign. It is in general commercial district at this site. This site in general commercial allows for either a pole sign or a monument sign. What considers the difference between a pole sign or a monument sign is, that's hard to call. A pole sign in this district is allowed to be 20 feet high. A monument sign is allowed to be 8 feet high. We're asking for our monument sign to be installed at a height of 9 feet. Very tasteful sign, Three Rivers plans on using. I believe you guys probably have an image of it in your packet. Looking to do the same type sign at a couple of their other branches. We've got one going in Liberty, Indiana. We're have another variance tonight for one at the main branch downtown. Any questions? Be glad to answer them.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Now at this time, would the board have any questions to pose to the petitioner? Mr. Thompson, I do have a couple of questions in terms of the sign itself.
Okay.
When you say it's going to be like 1 foot higher, are we talking about, is the sign just going to be bigger, or is it just going to be more elevated? Is this based on the design?
It's going to be slightly bigger than the sign that is existing there now, but it is going to be a foot higher than what ordinance allows.
Okay.
The sign that's there now is approximately 6 feet. It has just identification. This sign is going to be approximately 9 feet. It has identification and an electronic reader board or message center. Sign is in the spirit of the ordinance. Perfect Circle Credit Union just installed a sign very similar to it on the same street. We're not looking to do anything out of the ordinary. It just so happens the way these signs are classified in this district that we happen to be a foot taller than what the ordinance allows for a monument sign.
Correct. Okay. You said it would have, I guess, a ticker or something that...
It's an electronic message center.
Okay.
Similar to, I'm trying to think where, State Farm Insurance, we have one, quite a few of them in town, RMD Patty Insurance, Perfect Circle Credit Union, Hayes Arboretum.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions to the petitioner from the board? Hearing none, I will open public hearing. If there's anyone who would like to speak in favor of the current petition, if you could please state your name and let us know why you're speaking in favor of it. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the current petition? If you could please state your name and tell us why you're speaking in opposition. None? Hearing none, We will close public hearing and we will go to the planning staff at this time.
All right, thank you. This is BZA 10-2020. The petition of West End Savings Bank is the owner of the property, and Ed Thompson of A+ Signs is the agent, requesting an approval of variance of development standards to allow an increase in maximum ground sign height above grade from 8 feet to 9 feet, located at 101 South 37th Street. The zoning is GC or general commercial. The lot is used commercially. Adjoining zoning to the north and south is both M2, which is intense multifamily residential. To the east is general commercial, and to the west is split between general commercial and R2, which is medium density single family residential. We notified 6 adjacent property owners and received 1 in favor from, my apologies, I thought I had it out. Never mind, I guess we did not receive any responses. I might have gotten that confused with a different one. The proposed variance would allow for a new sign to be constructed as the branding of West End Bank changes to Three Rivers Credit Union. Variances of development standards must meet the following definition of a practical difficulty: a difficulty with regard to one's ability to improve land stemming from the regulations of this unified development ordinance. A practical difficulty is not a hardship, rather it is a situation where the owner could comply with the regulations of this unified development ordinance, but would like a variance from the development standards to improve the site in a practical manner. For instance, a person may request a variance from a side yard setback due to a large tree which is blocking the only location that would meet the development standards for a new garage location. The planning staff consulted with all city departments and utilities to determine any objections based on public health and safety, and no objections were raised. Staff recommendations for approval based on these findings. Findings of fact for 101 South 37th Street, I believe there's a typo in the staff report. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because this proposal will not compromise public health, safety, morals, and general welfare as it is consistent with the vision triangle requirements along South 37th Street and South A Street and will not impact drivers, pedestrians, or cyclists passing by. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the sign will remain in the original location and is consistent with the average setback for signs on adjacent properties, and it conforms to all other unified development ordinance codes. The sign dimensions are consistent with nearby signage. The strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because the sign location is substantially set back from the wide turn at the intersection of South 37th Street and South A Street. As such, a taller sign is necessary for visibility from these roads. The proposal is consistent with new branding standards for the credit union, and there were no written commitments.
Thank you. At this time, are there any questions to the planning staff from the board? Hearing none, and there's no conversation amongst the board members themselves, I would hear a motion, BZA 10-2020.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of BZA 10-2020 based on the finding of facts.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Will you please call the roll?
Jeff Cook?
Aye.
Sherry Holden Davis?
Aye.
Joe Green?
Aye.
Aaron Roberts?
Aye.
With that, BZA 10-2020 passes. And we will move on to BZA 11-2020. BZA 11-2020 is the petition of West End Savings Bank as the owner and Ed Thompson of A+ Signs as the agent, asking for approval of a variance of development standards to allow an increase in maximum ground sign area, to 84 square feet and to increase the allowable ground sign height from 6 feet to 10 feet above grade. And this is at the address of 34 South 7th Street. Mr. Thompson, give us a little bit more about your petition.
Sure, Ed Thompson, again, A+ Signs. Petition we have West End Bank, Three Rivers, looking to install another monument sign very similar to the one that we just presented for the South 37th Street location. This sign actually is just slightly larger since it's going to be at their main location. It's going to actually represent their main branch, their corporate offices, right there in the area. This sign is going to be very similar to the sign directly across the street at Wesley Bates Financial Center, very similar in height to the sign at the Salvation Army, which is directly catty corner from this property. Sign, we're in a CB zoning district. Central Business Zoning District has a little bit different stipulations than the general commercial we have on 37th Street. So, you know, this variance, it looks a little bit different because we're asking for a little more height, because in Central Business, they originally only allow for 6 feet. We're again asking for between 9 and 10 feet tall. Increase in square footage. Central Business right now with the new UDO only allows for a 40 square foot freestanding or monument sign. We're asking for 84 square feet. Signs all over the area, Central Business District, I don't know that there are many up there that are reduced to 40 square feet. Basically, variance in a nutshell, you know, we're looking to do 84 square feet, 9.5 feet tall, keep the sign similar to everything in the area, provide a sufficient setback that it's not going to be a sight distance or sight triangle hazard.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you. Anybody has any questions?
Do we have any questions from the board to the petitioner at this time? Hearing none, I will open up public hearing. If there's anyone who'd like to speak in favor of petition 11-2020, please state your name. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the petition? If you could please state your name and let us know why you speak in opposition. Hearing none, we will close public hearing and we will hear from the planning staff.
Thank you. This is petition BZA 11-2020, petition of West End Savings Bank owner and Ed Thompson of A+ Signs as the agent, requesting an approval of variance of development standards to allow an increase in maximum ground sign area to 84 square feet and to increase allowable ground sign height from 6 to 10 feet above grade. Located at 34 South 7th Street. The zoning is CB or central business, and the use of the lot is commercial. Adjoining zoning to the north is CB, to the south is GC, to the east is CB, and to the west is CB. We notified 10 adjacent property owners and received 2 responses. One from Paul Lingle at 801 North A Street said he was in favor, and one from Rebecca Gilliam, Executive Director of the Wayne County Foundation at 33 South 7th Street, stated that she was in favor as well. The proposed variances would allow for a new sign to be constructed as the branding of West End Bank changes to Three Rivers Credit Union. Variances development standards must meet the following definition of a practical difficulty: a difficulty with regard to one's ability to improve land stemming from the regulations of this Unified Development Ordinance. A practical difficulty is not a hardship, rather it is a situation where the owner could comply with the regulations within this Unified Development Ordinance, but would like a variance from the development standards to improve his site in a practical manner. For instance, a person may request a variance from a side yard setback due to a large tree which is blocking the only location that would meet the development standards for a new garage location. The planning staff consulted with all city departments and utilities to determine any objections based on public health and safety, and no objections were raised. Staff recommendation is for approval based on these findings of fact for 34 South 7th Street. Apologize, that's the same mistyped address again. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because this proposal will not compromise public health, safety, morals, or general welfare as it is consistent with the vision triangle requirements along South 7th Street and South A Street and is consistent with surrounding signage. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the sign will conform to all other Unified Development Ordinance codes and is consistent with surrounding signage in the downtown area. The strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because the sign location has frontage on 2 very high traffic streets. For visibility of the sign, granting of the proposed variance is necessary. And we had no written commitments.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would hear if we had any questions from the board to the planning staff. Do we have any questions or talk amongst the board members ourselves? Hearing none, I would hear a motion for BZA 11-2020.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve BZA 11-2020.
And a second.
I have a motion and a second. Will you please call the roll?
Jeff Cook?
Aye.
Sherry Harlan Davis?
Aye.
Joe Green?
Aye.
Aaron Roberts?
Aye.
With that, BZA 11-2020 passes.
Thank you.
You know, currently I don't have the next, what's the date for the next meeting?
We do have one more petition on the agenda, BZA 12.
We do, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Did not come up on my screen. Here we go. My apologies. BZA 12-2020, the petition of Tabitha Farmer Whistle is the owner and agent, asking for the approval of a variance of development standards to allow a reduction of a minimum side yard setback for an accessory structure from 20 feet to 10 feet at the address of 5070 Mount Pike. Will the petitioner please state your name and tell us a little bit about your petition?
Sure, this is Tabitha Whistle. My husband Tom is here with me today. We had filed the application for the variance request that you had previously mentioned. Basically, we live on Greenmount Pike, about 2 miles outside of the city limits. And I don't know if any of you live out this way or know anyone who does, but I guess the grade of the slope of the land behind our house is extremely steep. I guess the reasons that we're requesting the variance is because, one, we want to convert our existing garage into my office for an office or a business that I operate from our home. It's really the only place I can get a consistent internet signal or cell phone coverage because both of those situations are challenging out here as well. And two, I mean, we've significantly outgrown our current garage space. And I guess having looked at our yard overall and just the space that we have, there's a limited amount of flat space that we have, and we would have to, build a retaining wall. But really, the area where we're proposing to build the current or the secondary structure, which would be a detached garage, is just to the east of our house.
Also between our house and our neighbor to the east, who that would be, who would be inside of the 20 feet, there's heavy vegetation between our house and theirs. And at the closest point from our property to from that structure to their house is about 75 feet. And there would still be, that 10 feet there would still be covered in pretty much, you know, as heavily vegetated as that could be, it is. We've talked to them and they're, you know, they were
at the time they were, yeah, fine with it. Our neighbors to the west is a Rhett Baumgartner, and you know, I had a conversation with him as well, but you know, he was fine with it at the time, but there's definitely no room on the west side of our house to build a garage, and then behind our house is pretty impossible as well.
We have to mow it with a goat.
Right.
So that's pretty much our what we have.
Right. I don't have a PowerPoint or anything, but I did provide some supporting documentation when I filed the application that gives like property lines, you know, of our existing space, as well as a, you know, an example of a structure that we're looking to add to the east of our house.
And all our other measurements fall within the parameters, except for that one.
Right. Thank you. At this time, are there any questions from the board to the petitioners? I don't have any particular questions. I did visit the site, and I did see what you mean. You're on a very steep grade in the back and on the sides there. So, hearing no questions.
Yeah, we've been doing yard work the last week, clearing out the brush, so it's definitely been feeling it.
So, hearing no questions from the board, we will thank you to the petitioners. Thank you very much. I will now open.
Thank you.
No problem. At this time, we're opening public hearing. Anybody who would like to speak in favor of the current petition, if you could please state your name and tell us why you're speaking in favor. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the current petition? If you could please state your name.
He's muted. Might not be able to unmute himself.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Yeah, it seemed like you waited a lot longer for a position.
It sounds like somebody has there we go. I was just saying, hearing nobody speaking. Did we hear anything from public hearing? Okay, so everybody did hear that part, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we will now close public hearing, and we will hear from the planning staff at this time.
All right, thank you. This is petition BZA 12-2020, the petition of Tabitha Whistle, owner and agent, requesting an approval of variance of development standards to allow a reduction of the minimum side yard setback for an accessory structure from 20 feet to 10 feet, located at 5075 Greenmount Pike. The zoning is ag or agricultural. The use of the lot is residential, and the adjoining zoning to the north, to the south, to the east, and to the west is all ag as well. We notified 7 adjacent property owners and received 1 response from Sarah Peacock at 5062 Greenmount Pike, stating that she was in favor of the petition. And the proposed variances would allow for a detached garage to be built on the lot to the east of the existing house. Variances of development standards must meet the following definition of a practical difficulty, which is a difficulty with regard to one's ability to improve land stemming from regulations of this Unified Development Ordinance. Practical difficulty is not a hardship, rather it is a situation where the owner could comply with the regulations within this Unified Development Ordinance, but would like a variance from the development standards to improve his site in a practical manner. For instance, a person may request a variance from a side yard setback due to a large tree which is blocking the only location that would meet the development standards for a new garage location. The planning staff consulted with all city departments and utilities to determine any objections based on public health and safety. No objections were raised. Staff recommendations for approval based on these findings of fact for 5075 Greenmount Pike. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Because this proposal will not compromise public health, safety, morals, or general welfare, as the garage will be screened by a line of trees from adjoining properties to the east and to the west. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the garage will conform to all other Unified Development Ordinance codes and will be screened from neighboring properties by trees. The strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because the substantial elevation drop-off on the rear of the property prohibits any development, and the size of the proposed garage necessitates a setback reduction, and there were no written commitments.
Are there any questions from the board to the planning staff at this time? Hearing none, and there's no discussion amongst the board ourselves, I would hear a motion for BZA 12-2020.
Mr. Chair, motion for approval for BZA 12-2020 based on finding of fact.
Second.
I have a motion in 2 seconds. Will please call the roll.
Jeff Cook.
Aye.
Sherry Harlan Davis.
Aye.
Joe Green.
Aye.
And Aaron Roberts.
Aye.
And with that, BZA 12-2020 passes. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Now I will emphasize that I don't necessarily know the date of our next meeting is. I'm assuming that the deadline for filing for that meeting was today on April the 9th, 2000.
And I would note we received no new applications, so the only item on the agenda for next month was the tabled BZA 13-2020.
Fair enough. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
June 11th is the next date.
Okay.
June 11th will be the next meeting date.
It's not May?
Or I'm sorry, May 14th, my fault. I left the wrong line. Thank you.
Sorry.
All right.
Oh, you're good.
So May 14th will be our next meeting for BCA. The filing deadline for that meeting is April the 9th, 2020. And hearing any other business? I'm hearing none. I motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. All.
Thank you.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.